Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 in this series of building a web application using Rust. So in the first episode, we basically looked at how to manage configurations. Today we'll be looking at how to handle database connections and migrations. So the database handling part, I'm going to break it down into two separate videos. In the first one today, we'll be covering database connectivity and handling database migrations. And in the next episode we will look at building a sort of like a framework utilizing the asynchronous library Tokio. We'll look at how you can leverage channels and create a asynchronous framework through message passing to build a very clean way to execute queries on your database, and that works out very well in conjunction with the server piece that we will be writing later on. Now when it comes to the database, basically we have a couple of options in the Rust ecosystem that I'm aware of, the couple of popular ones. The one a popular option with Rust is a library called Diesel, and so this is like a full-blown ORM style thing, and it does a lot of magic, and especially for people who are familiar to the sort of the active record and those style of patterns, they would feel more at home while using Diesel. I was looking for something much more simplistic. SQLX is the other library which offered that to me. It has a lot of the features, and obviously the some of the really important ones. One is it's truly asynchronous. That is important because you want to be able to execute your queries asynchronous. Other important thing that SQLX also offers you is compile time checked queries. Now that's something that I have used less, mostly because it just adds a lot of time and a bit of nuance and complexity on your compilation process, because it requires your database to be up and running during compilation, which is something I find a little awkward. I would expect obviously the database should be up and ready at runtime, and we shouldn't really need it during compile time, but that is an option you have, and I think there is definitely some benefit to that. The fact that your queries would be checked against the database implies that you would not be making any silly mistakes like spelling mistakes or even just SQL typos and things like that. SQLX obviously does work with a lot of databases. Today we'll be using Postgres, I think. And also the nice thing to have, because in the Rust ecosystem, when it comes to asynchronous processing, there are a lot of runtimes that are available. Some of the popular ones listed here: Async SDA, Tokio, and Actex. Those are the ones that is SQLX supports, but the way it's designed is it's runtime agnostic. So if there are other runtimes, there should be a way to work with them as well. Today we'll be using Tokio, just because I think that is one of the more popular ones. I have more experience with using Tokio. And the other thing, of course, is the TLS backends. Again, it has support for both native TLS and Rust TLS. Now I don't have a lot of information about comparing and contrasting between native TLS and Rust TLS, whether it be performance or any other characteristics. The only main point of difference that I understand is the fact that native TLS uses native bindings, which means it requires certain things to be available, OpenSSL available and installed on your host system or your containers wherever you're actually utilizing it, whereas Rust TLS is a complete TLS implementation in pure Rust, which means you don't have an external dependency. So I tend to favor Rust TLS, but I don't know in terms of performance or any other characteristics how they compare and contrast. So let's just get started. Let's start adding some of these libraries. As I said, we'll be using the Tokio runtime library, so that's the first thing we will have to install. So we will add the Tokio runtime library, and we will go ahead and have it with full features, which means we'll be trying to utilize all of the features in Tokio. So this is that, and then we will be adding SQLX. So another thing, another minor interesting tip would be, there is a utility called it's cargo what features, I think we should be able to get to the actual repo. But and so basically you can install it using cargo install cargo what features, but to see it in action, what this allows you to do pretty neat is, for example, if I wanted to look at what are all the features that SQLX Create offers, you can look at them here, and this helps you to plan, and definitely it's something cool to have. So what we will be doing is we will add SQLX, and then we will be cherry picking few features. The most important one obviously that you need, which is required, is one runtime and combo that with the TLS backend. And so for, like I said, we'll be using Tokio, and I'll stick to RustLS. That's something I've used in the past. I think it works. And the other thing would be, obviously we will install the Postgres feature, because we'll be dealing with handling Postgres database. And also I will add the migrate feature, although it does say that this is the default, but I prefer being explicit, and I'll add this anyway. So once we add this, you will see in the cargo toml file basically the changes here. The features for SQLX we've added is runtime, Tokio, and RustLS, Postgres, and migrate. And then Tokio we will install it with the full set of features, right? So now that we have this, now we will start working on creating our database module. So in our database module, I think what I will like to do is we will create a wrapper struct that I will use to hold some of the important information. In this case, we will hold our Postgres pool. So this is a connection pool, right? So we will hold a connection pool and sort of hold the reference to that, and we will gradually build upon this. We would obviously have to go ahead and import these. So we need pool and we need Postgres. Now we'll add stuff as we need gradually, right? And we'll start with the implementation. We will implement the constructor now. Obviously we will be using anyhow result, and obviously we will now import our config as well, because we will be needing the configurations. So now typically how you and you can see that in the documentation here as well, how to actually instantiate a pool. It's pretty straightforward. So we would be needing a PG pool options, which basically sets up default PG pool options. So we will import that as well. So this is inside Postgres PG pool options, and so we will say, okay, hey, let our pool is going to be PG pool options new, and then we want to set up a maximum number of connections. Rather than hard coding, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and improve our configuration, and we will add the max configurations here. So the max connection settings here, and so this is going to be an unsend 32. Is something I'm already aware of, so I'm going to straight away do that. And let's also then go ahead and update our default configuration then. So we will then now be adding the max connections. So I'm going to choose this to be 16, but the fact that there is a configuration means I can decide on a more sensible value for this. The reason I choose 16 for my current machine is because this box has 16 cores, so it should be able to utilize that, right? So we will then now use this so database dot max connections. So this sets up the max connections, and then we have to action connect. For that also we will be using the database URL, and then we just wait, and we pass on the error in case there is one. So once now that we have the pool, the one thing we obviously want to do, which is useful, let me see what's this error. Yeah, okay, so it says that this is not, sorry, this is not being imported, so we will just go ahead and import this here just so that this gets compiled. Obviously it's going to complain because we haven't returned anything yet. What eventually we will be returning is basically this, given that we have a pool. The one thing that I want to do is I want to also run my migrations at this initialization step. So if there are any new migrations that we may have created, we will end up running those and executing those migrations as we set up our database connection, and so basically during application boot. So this would be useful, and this works pretty. So all we say is run and then pass in the pool, and we basically have to then await. I believe this is correct. We have not imported the migrate macro, and now we do. What does it say now? Okay. What does it say here? This says no field max connections on config database. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Oh, okay, so yeah, I think that was just a typo. So now that we have that, now this says okay, hey, no such file or directory. Now by default SQLX expects there to be a directory called migrations. Obviously this can be in a different place, like for instance we could say db/migrations, or I'm going to stick to the default. I'm okay with that. So we will just create a directory, empty directory, nothing there yet, but this will stop giving me the error saying that let me just restart it once again. Yeah, I think we're good now. So basically it's not complaining. But to give you a little bit context here, basically we are running the migrations as we are instantiating our connection as well. Now I want to create a struct to represent my data model. Okay, and now one way that we could do this is obviously keep it in a separate module. However, since we're only dealing with just one module, I am okay with just keeping it here, and our model is going to be URL map. It's going to have I don't think I need it to be public just yet. At least we will see in future that we have a key and then we have a URL. This is basically what I'm going to use as my data model. And so I'm going to basically have in the database a set of key to URL mappings, and we are going to utilize that in in our APIs to do a redirection. So when a user comes to a /key URL, we will forward them to the URL that we've configured in the database, and obviously there'll be a supporting CRUD API for us to be able to create, delete, manage the URL maps. Now the few things we obviously need to add to our this thing would be, we need definitely debug. We also need a thing called from row. This again comes from SQLX. We need to add let's also add clone, so that we will be able to clone an instance. Sometimes it should be useful, and then we will add our typical serialize and deserialize. Yeah, this should be sufficient, except we haven't imported it with the right. Yeah, I think this is good. So we've imported this thing. I will also go ahead and implement a simple constructor for my URL map. Here I don't need a result access. In fact, yeah. So what we will do is so that's it. I think this should be good enough. Let me also then do one thing. So I am running Postgres in Docker. For no particular reason, I think on this box I was facing some issues running Postgres natively. I didn't bother fixing them. Perhaps in future we can, but it's immaterial. So I'm running Postgres, and I've basically exported the port to my local host. So I've made sure that the network for this container is going to be the same as that of the host, so that the service is then now available on my host machine. And so we're going to be using this as our Postgres backend. And so for this purpose, basically I'm going to go ahead and change the configuration to match this. Okay, so we will make changes in the development. Max connections, I'm going to stick to the default. We don't need to override. In fact, I've already gone ahead and changed the URL. So my the Postgres that I'm running there happens to have Postgres as a user, admin as a password. I'm going to stick to localhost. And then I'm going to rely on the URL mapper dev. I'm calling my database as URL mapper dev. So this is going to be our database. SQLX also has a CLI application which you can install, and I have installed. And the nice thing about this is it gives you a bunch of ability to do a bunch of things. Things like creating a migration, running a migration. Although running a migration we don't have to do because we're using the migrator API to run them as our application boots up. Right, so we won't have to do that ourselves, but like for example creating the database, things like that, we can do that using the SQLX CLI. The only minor drawback is because we're using the CLI, it doesn't really have access to our configurations. It doesn't have access to configurations, so we have to manually provide it, which is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure the database gets created. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a migration. So I'll say create, and my migration name I'm going to say create URL maps. I think this is good. No, I think the API is add. Okay, is that right? Yeah, that's right. So let's look at the migration. Obviously it has nothing, it's just a blanket this thing. I'm going to go ahead and so we have a key which will be let's maybe 50 should be good enough, and I will just use this as my primary key. A bit awkward, but again, to keep things simple, we'll just use this. I'll have a URL for this. I will use the text as my data type. It may be long. I don't want to restrict on the size for just 256 characters. So the only thing I will say, let this never be null, and that's about it. I think this looks good. Let's go ahead and try running our application. In fact, no, wait. We are yet to actually utilize our database yet, instantiated basically, right? So let's go to our main function. We keep the config part. What I'm going to do is now we will instantiate our listing. It's an asynchronous one, so we have to await, and we also have to I want to get this. And another thing, of course, we are not yet actually using the Tokio runtime, and so in order for us to do that, we have to declare now our function as a asynchronous main. But having an asynchronous database, what we want to do is we want to now utilize Tokio runtime now. Now the thing is, in a typical Rust application, obviously it requires or it needs for a main function to be present. That would be the entry point for our application. However, when we declare our main function as asynchronous, Rust can no longer actually execute it because it's meant to be asynchronous. So then the idea is a certain runtime would have to kick in. The runtime would have its own main function get started, and then within its runtime it should then be able to execute our asynchronous main function, and that's exactly what Tokio main is doing. So that is basically what this means is, it takes our asynchronous main function and allows that to be used as a regular main function. But the reason we need this to be asynchronous is because we're using asynchronous APIs, so we need to use a wait to actually get them, and so for that purpose we need the main function to be asynchronous, and so we just go ahead and utilize the Tokio main runtime to make sure even though our main function is asynchronous, we're able to execute on it. So now that we have a DB, it has been instantiated, we get a reference to it. Now let's try maybe running queries on it. So the way you can run a query is as simple as we can utilize there are a bunch of APIs. Some of them, if you were to use the bang variants, which are basically macros, those are the ones that are checked. I'm not going to use them right now because I've faced issues with them in the past, or maybe we'll use them a little later. I'm going to use the non-bang variations, and we are going to say now is we'll also be utilizing the our model as well, right? So what we will do is, so query as basically allows you to execute a query and have it parsed as a type of your choosing. In my case, I know this is a URL map object, and so we are going to use that. So select star from URL maps. Let's just do this, right? And we have to then go ahead and say fetch all. Here we can give it the DB pool, I believe, and then we can wait on this. Oh, actually we have to unwrap our this thing. We can do this, but let's remove this for the time being. And we'll see this, and then let's just print it out. Okay, so cargo check isn't complaining. Now let's try running this. Okay, so now it's building this, and it says, wait, actually so we print out our configuration. We know that we're looking at URL map dev, and it says, hey, results basically is an empty array, and that's great. So let's go ahead and maybe insert some data into users, sorry, URL maps, and so we have a key and URL. So let the key, for instance, be GitHub, and I'll give my link to my GitHub profile. We'll use this. It's been inserted. Let's run it again, and bam, you see that now we are returning the key value map that we have in our database. And so yeah, and basically you should be able to see the fact that we've been able to connect to our database. We've been able to execute on the migrations. We manually created the data for now, but then we are able to query the database and get the data. And this is going to be key, and we'll build upon this. Thank you guys. I hope the audio was better this time. I hope you guys learned something. Cool. I'll meet you in the next episode. Thank you so much.